Hi, and welcome to Metabolism 101 presented by Jam Fitness. Today we're going to take just a few minutes of your time and talk about your metabolism, what it is, what your basic caloric requirements are, how TPA, TEF, NEAT, and EPOC can influence your metabolism, what you should eat and what not to eat to best create your results, and what hunger is really trying to tell you, and if you should listen. To begin with, we need to define metabolism. What exactly is it? Metabolism is defined as the whole range of biochemical processes that occur within a living organism. This includes things like building muscle, tearing muscle down, respiration, circulation, elimination, reproduction. All of those processes combine to create the basal or the resting metabolic rate. We do know that there are things that influence that resting metabolic rate. Things like age. Our resting metabolic rate will decrease 2% per decade. And you've seen this. You do the same exercise, you eat the same food, and the scale keeps going up. That's your age-related decline. Hormones can work for us either positively or negatively. When we're young and everything is growing and building, it's working in a positive and it increases our resting metabolic rate. But as we start to get a little bit older and some of those processes become less necessary, like after menopause and reproduction, we start to see a slight decline in the resting metabolic rate due to having to perform fewer processes. Chronic dieting is notoriously bad for our metabolism. And I don't know about you, but I've been dieting since I was probably 14 years old. And I know that there have been times that I have dipped well below the necessary daily requirements to try to get that extra weight off. But when I've done that, I've actually taught my body something rather negative. I've taught it that it doesn't need those processes. And those processes are really related to optimal health. Now, a really positive thing we can do is build some muscle. In fact, we can raise our resting metabolic rate up to 7% just by adding some significant muscle. And you don't have to look like Arnold. You just have a little bit of denser, thicker muscle, and it's going to make you burn at a slightly higher rate. EPOC, which is exercise post-oxygen consumption, is a very minimal thing that we can do, but it can raise our metabolism over the 24 hours after an intense exercise. It's not going to raise it all that much, maybe 7%, but every little bit helps. We talked a little bit about that basal metabolic rate, and this is why we need it. For an average 150-pound person, this is what we're talking about needing just to survive. Okay? Brains take about 450 calories a day because we do a lot of thinking. Our heart is beating all day long for us at 180 calories. Our lungs breathing in and out at 160. Our kidney doing its part to detoxify us, secrete urine and add some hormones into the mix at 120. And then your liver at 560 because it is doing a heck of a lot of work detoxifying our body. Right here, we're looking at over 1,300 calories a day minimum just to handle these 5 elements. So dropping below that type of calories is probably not optimal on the long term. On the short term, a couple of days here, a couple of days there, it's fine. But we don't want to stay below this rate to risk doing some of that damage from chronic dieting. 4 other things we need to consider when we're talking about our metabolism are TPA, TEF, NEAT, and EPOC. TPA is the thermic effect of physical activity, what you're burning while you exercise. That's what we're doing here at JAM. When you look up and see those numbers on the heart rate monitor, we're increasing your TPA. 500 calories for a workout for a woman, 800 for a man, and even those super achievers that are getting 1,000, 1,500 or more. Crazy. That can be up to 10% of your daily caloric burn, that metabolism. Another 10% comes from TEF, the thermogenic effect of food. This is digestion. When you're eating and assimilating these foods into your body, they actually consume energy. The TEF for protein is 30%. So 30% of the calories you're consuming in that protein are utilized to break it down. The test for fats and carbohydrates is slightly lower at 5%, and that's also part of the reason that we recommend that you eat a little bit more protein if you're still hungry. NEAT, non-exercise activity thermogenesis. This is the activity of daily life. It is when you're cooking for your family. It is when you're vacuuming the rug. It is when you're walking out the door to go down to your car or from the car to work or the store. It's carrying your groceries, fidgeting, chewing gum. All of these things, if you stay active throughout your day, can account for 20% of your calorie usage every day. That's huge. And meat is also one of the easiest places to increase your caloric expenditure. EPOC, exercise post-oxygen consumption, is the afterburn. So if you've done one of the great HIIT workouts that we have here and you've left and you've been fanning yourself all day, going, oh my gosh, is it hot or is it just me? Guess what? It's just you. You are experiencing afterburn, those extra calories that are burnt in the 24 hours or so after intense exercise. And remember, it can be another 7% on top of what you just did. So we talked about why to eat and how much to eat. Let's talk about what to eat. Americans are calorie rich but nutrient poor. In fact, most obese individuals are malnourished. That seems kind of counterintuitive. We don't think of heavy people as being malnourished, but it's talking about not having the nutrients, the vitamins, the minerals, the essential fatty acids, and the essential amino acids to promote health. Our rule is simple: eat for nutrient density, eat for vitamins, eat for minerals, eat lower in total calories, but eat stuff that's good for you. And the rules right here are pretty simple. Eat as close to nature as possible. It should be recognizable as food. I think they had a study where they put McDonald's food out and ants and bugs didn't even eat it. That should say something. We also want to eat like great grandma. I used to say eat like grandma, but we're all getting to the place where we're living longer. So let's look at great grandma. She ate most of her local produce in season, where it was picked at the peak of freshness, flavor, and nutrients. And she might can it at that point, but it was here, it was close. Most of our food is coming from so far away that it is picked green. It is kept in cooled containers and dark, where the sun cannot do its magic and create those nutrients. Organic if it's not cost prohibitive. We want to avoid too much pesticide residue and herbicide residue in our food. And that's really the reason we want to avoid GMOs, because they're not modified to be bigger, better, badder. They're actually modified to resist more pesticides and herbicides, and they are sprayed very heavily. Do eat all of your macronutrients, please, please, please. Carbs, fats, proteins. These are sources of essential elements. That's your nutrients, your essential fatty acids and amino acids. Eat foods you tolerate well. If you're one of the lucky people who can handle dairy, please eat it. And if it comes wrapped in cellophane or plastic, it's probably not a good idea. Even some of the quote unquote healthy options out there, the protein bars and things like that, if you look at their ingredients list, it's probably not the best for you. And lastly, if you can't control what's in your food, maybe you're at a party, you're at a restaurant, do control your portions. Remember that the size of your palm is roughly protein, the fist is roughly carbohydrate, and the thumb is roughly fats. So we talked about what to eat. Now let's talk about what not to eat. The list is pretty short. Processed foods full of things you can't pronounce. Kind of a dumb moment there. If it's got a bunch of stuff on it that you can't pronounce, your body probably can't recognize it. Sugar substitutes and high fructose corn syrup. There are challenges with NutraSweet and Splenda and saccharin. We all know that. And then the high fructose corn syrup, which is a contributing factor for non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, as well as a contributor for things like diabetes. So we want to avoid those as well. Industrial seed oils. Most industrial seed oils are not a good idea. At least limit them. Although they are full of omega-6s, they actually are very, very fragile oils. And what we find is light and heat denature them and turn them into trans fats. So you want to limit the amount of industrial seed oils that you're consuming. The Dirty Dozen Plus. Every year, this organization, I placed the website here, ewg.org, puts out a list of what they consider the Dirty Dozen, and now it's plus. It used to just be 12, but they've had to raise it up a little bit. These are fruits and vegetables, when grown conventionally, have extremely high levels of pesticides and herbicides on them. For no other reason than to avoid that, please, if you must, eat these foods organic. Okay, they're great fruits and vegetables, but you always want to get them organic. Apples is almost always on the list. Almost always. Strawberries is another one. There's also a list that they put out, same organization, called the Clean 15. And those are fruits and vegetables that have very limited amounts of pesticides and inorganic residues on them, so you can eat them conventional, and they're not going to cause you that much of a trouble. But what about hunger? Hunger is an important message that your body sends you, but it's also important that you know how to decipher that message. They may be speaking a slightly different language. Your body is trying to tell you something, and we need to evaluate what it's trying to say, whether we're dealing with physical hunger or emotional hunger. First thing I want you to do to evaluate your hunger is drink water. If you've ever opened the refrigerator and looked and thought, I just don't know what I want to eat, try drinking a glass of water first. Thirst often masquerades as hunger. The second is do the apple test. Are you hungry enough to eat an apple? And this is really going to tell us if we're dealing with physical or emotional hunger. Somebody who's physically hungry will eat an apple, will eat a piece of fruit. Somebody who's emotionally hungry is looking for chocolate and pizza and potato chips, right? Physical hunger is gradual. It comes over time, nice and slow. I'm hungry. Ooh, I'm hungrier. Now it's time to eat. Emotional hunger is sudden. You see a billboard for Domino's Pizza and immediately you can think of nothing else but pizza. It's in the head. Emotional hunger exists in your head, not in your tummy. When you're physically hungry, your tummy's growling. When you're emotionally hungry, there's a voice inside your head screaming, give me chocolate. We need to figure out if we're dealing with one or the other. And if we are dealing with physical hunger, then by all means eat. That's what it's supposed to tell you. But if you're dealing with emotional hunger, it's time to distract yourself. Go do something physical. Get involved in a project. Do something that gets you away from the kitchen and away from the temptation. There are a couple other factors that can influence your metabolism. One is sleep, the other is hydration, and we will be putting together a video very shortly to talk about those two things and how you can better your results by meeting those needs. That's really what I have for you today. What is metabolism? We now know. How do TIFA, TEF, NEAT, and EPOC combine to help us with our metabolism? How many calories a day do we need to eat as a minimum? What should we eat? What should we avoid? And how do we handle hunger? I hope you got some great information. Please feel free to talk to us at the club, email us, Facebook us. We are more than happy to answer any questions you might have. Have a great day.